Pulse 95. Between local lines, notes from the Emirate.
Notes from the Emirate, and we're talking about smart solutions and everything being available online nowadays. Sharjah municipality announced stopping all transactions of paper document for registration and renewal of lease contracts for properties and replacing them with electronic leases issued through its website. According to the Director General of Sharjah City Municipality, Thabit Al-Turaifi, he said that the aim of this new initiative was to reduce the time and also efforts for availing services and to ensure highest levels of satisfaction. He also pointed out that the municipality expedited the paperless transformation due to the COVID-19 pandemic to ensure the safety and health of its customers.
Yeah, and this is in line with the movement by the Sharjah municipality to move towards digitization, to transform into becoming a paperless department by the end of this year, relying entirely on smart programs and digital technologies, a development that's been accelerated due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Now, according to the Assistant Director General of Customer Service at Sharjah Municipality, Khalid bin Falah al-Swedi, he said the municipality launched the contract attestation service on the website. He said the move will help the municipality to complete a greater number of transactions, ensuring the safety of customers and staff. He said customers can download the lease contract from the municipality's website and then complete the necessary procedures for renewal or certification in electronic forms or through service centers or the rental regulation department in its various branches. So many options here for residents in the Emirate of Sharjah.
Speaking of residents of the Emirate of Sharjah and Sharjah initiatives for smart solutions, we know that Hamriya Free Zone Authority as well, they came up with many smart solutions that serve and support local businesses here in the Emirate. Now, what we know about, first of all, about Hamriya Free Zone, it probably welcomes over 6,500 companies from 163 countries, testament to its standards of service, state-of-the-art infrastructure, and also broad range of permissible business activities. And what we know, of course, is that this free zone sits on a 30 million square meter site in Sharjah. It's a prestigious one. But for today's entrepreneurs, it's all about speed and how quickly they can set up business. And in this regard, the Hamriya Free Zone came up with a unique plan to set up business in less than an hour. And it makes your ventures more successful. How are they doing that? Well, they're providing more than 285 online services through their website, which allows investors to avail important services such as applying for a request to establish a company in the free zone. And this is simply done through their website, their single window operation, which is tailored to complete all transactions under the supervision of a highly efficient and professional team who make sure that investors get licenses and permits within only 1 hour. So the process only requires 4 easy steps: choosing the type of license and type of facility, submitting the signed application form along with your required documents, making the payment, and finally, you receive your trade license. So this is for all the entrepreneurs out there here in Sharjah.
Yeah, and this is pretty big and really shows that despite the current situation, the economic condition and the global pandemic, Sharjah has proven its ability to attract investors from all sectors. And that is thanks to the numerous competitive benefits its various free zones and organizations offer, which is a crucial factor in how companies around the world make that decision to establish a presence in Sharjah in the first place. So pretty big news here for us in this emirate. Stay tuned for more stories and developments from the region and around the world right here on Pulse 95.
This is Pulse 95.
Pulse 95.
It's the Morning Majlis. It's the Morning Majlis.
Now, this is something a lot of people don't think about or consider too much. They assume that once they contract COVID-19 once, their body acquires an immunity, and for months on end afterwards, their chances of contracting the virus again are slim to none. But we've been seeing this around the world, a number of cases emerging where the individual had COVID-19 in the past, And on more than one occasion, the second infection is more severe. So let's get to the latest update here. A 25-year-old man in the U.S. state of Nevada had contracted COVID-19 on 2 separate occasions, according to a study published in the Lancet Infectious Diseases Journal. And the patient became seriously ill following the second infection. This is the first confirmed case of a U.S. patient becoming reinfected with COVID-19 and the 5th known case reported worldwide, prompting major concerns about how the virus mutates and whether or not people should continue to practice the measures they did even after they had been treated and cured of COVID-19 in the first place.
So this is what happened. On March 25th, the peer-reviewed medical journal said in a study that the 25-year-old man in Nevada's second most populous country experienced a wave of symptoms, okay, with a viral infection, including sore throat, cough, headache, nausea, and diarrhea. Then he presented to a community testing event held by a county health district on April 18th. He tested positive for COVID-19 for the first time. Now, the patient's initial symptoms fully cleared during isolation on April 27th, right? Which was maybe like 9 days later. Maybe 9 days later, I believe. Yeah,
yes,
about 9 days later. Now, he continued to feel well thereafter and tested negative for the coronavirus on 2 separate occasions, on May 9th and May 26th. So he cleared out of, his symptoms were clear on April 27th. Later, he tested negative for 2 times where he tested on May 9th and May 26th. All right? Till now, it's okay. Now, the 25-year-old experienced symptoms again from May 28th, 2 days. This just comes 2 days after his last test where he tested negative. Now, this time, he experienced another set of symptoms, including fever, headache, dizziness, cough, nausea, diarrhea. Now, later on June 5th, 48 days after the initial positive test, the patient contracted the virus for the second time. Now, his condition was found to be symptomatically more severe than the first time he was infected with the coronavirus. So then he presented to a primary care doctor and required hospital treatment on experiencing shortness of breath. He later recovered and was discharged, thankfully, from the hospital. He's a 25-year-old man. Now, what are scientists saying? They said the patient caught the coronavirus on 2 separate occasions rather than the original infection bouncing back after becoming dormant. This is because a comparison of the genetic codes showed significant differences between each variant associated with each instance of infection. They're saying that these findings suggest that the patient was infected by SARS-CoV-2 on 2 separate occasions by genetically distinct virus. Thus, previous exposure to SARS-CoV-2 might not guarantee total immunity in all cases. So all individuals, whether previously diagnosed with COVID-19 or not, should take identical precautions to avoid infection with the COVID-19. So obviously, to protect yourself, the WHO recommends maintaining a physical distance of at least, let's say, 1 meter. Here in the UAE, it's better to stay 2 meters away from people. You wear your mask, avoid crowds and social gatherings, keep rooms well ventilated, and clean your hands thoroughly and often.
Yeah, and this is quite a surprise to scientists as well. Not just the fact that the person got a second infection, it's the fact that a second infection was more severe.
Yeah.
Because according to the general wisdom they had prior to this is that once you get a first infection, if you were to be infected again, you would only have milder symptoms. That had been the assumption here. But the scientists are saying that, quote, it means that it is possible to get reinfected. That's all it really tells us. It doesn't tell us that protective immunity is impossible. It is worth remembering that this might just be one of a very small handful of reinfections. It might be very rare, or it might be one of the very first few we are going to see a lot more of, given time. These scientists working on the study said that the findings could, quote, potentially make generating immunity against the virus much more difficult, especially as time drags on. Say we don't find or don't deploy a worldwide vaccine by the end of this year and things continue in early 2021. and more infections continue to spike up, third, fourth waves of COVID-19, it doesn't mean that herd immunity is the prospect that everyone had been hoping for. It doesn't mean that is a feasible option here. And they've recommended that people continue to practice the precautionary measures, always be alert, and don't sit back and be complacent about the fact that you had COVID in the past. It doesn't mean you're going to have it again. It's a long fight. Scientists are still trying to figure out how this virus precisely works, how it mutates, how it changes over time, and how it affects you permanently as well. A lot of questions being answered at the moment.
At the moment, all we can do is just keep abiding by the health authorities' regulations and rules, measures. As we said, and we always say, wear your masks. Always keep yourself sanitized and everything around you sanitized and disinfected. Keep a social distance of 1.5 to 2 meters from other people. Avoid social gatherings as much as possible. And just practice those for the rest of your life. It's really good, actually. I mean, if you disinfect everything, I think after, hopefully COVID-19 will be finished immediately or like as soon as possible. But I feel like so many people adopted so many new habits of disinfection and keeping things clean more often. So, I mean, for now and later, it's beneficial for everyone, really, for the health of everyone.
And it's more considerate behavior overall, just keeping space from people, giving everybody the privacy they need, not coughing on everybody, keeping that good respiratory hygiene. So it's instilling a lot of good habits in us that we hope to carry on when this is over, hopefully as soon as possible. We've got 2 major clinical trials taking place in the UAE, so that's a really good sign. And hopefully those go very, very well, and we get that vaccine deployed as soon as possible. But until then, stay safe, stay careful, and continue to follow the precautionary measures communicated by the government and here on Pulse 95 as well to stay safe during these challenging times. Well, up next, we're going to talk about workplaces during COVID-19. A lot of greed, companies trying to maximize profits, that when they get a positive case in their office or workplace, they keep the staff going. They don't tell anybody, and they pretty much don't even test their workers. And some workers somewhere around the world have found out about this, and they're not too happy. So we're going to talk about the state of labor amid this time and so much more right here on Pulse 95.
Pulse 95.
The Morning Majlis, talking the stories that are shaping headlines. This is Pulse 95.
This is a story that's definitely shaping all the headlines. It's a big deal because the Portuguese Football Federation has just announced Portugal and Juventus forward Cristiano Ronaldo has tested positive for the coronavirus. Thankfully, the 35-year-old is doing well without symptoms, and he is now in isolation. And as a result of his period of quarantine, Ronaldo is set to miss Juventus Serie A fixture at Crotone on 17th of October and his side's opening Champions League group game against Dynamo Kyiv on 20th of October.
Yeah, and following Ronaldo's positive test, the Portuguese Football Federation also said that every player subsequently returned a negative test yesterday morning. And despite surging cases of COVID-19 across the world, many footballers have left their clubs to play international games. However, some clubs have not released players to play for their countries, including Austrian side RB Salzburg, whose players were called up for Mali, Cameroon, Zambia, Austria, and Hungary. Due to the spread of COVID-19, the clubs essentially said, no, you can't go and play for your international team and do this. Now, on Monday, Ronaldo had posted a photo to social media of him sharing a meal with his Portugal teammates. That spread some concern about possible spread as well. Ronaldo himself has scored 3 league goals in 2 games for Juventus so far this season, one against Sampdoria and a brace against AS Roma as well. And with his first goal against Sweden in the Nations League last month, Ronaldo became the second player ever to reach the milestone of 100 international goals. He is now 8 goals behind the all-time international record of 109 set by Ali Daei. And Ronaldo is considered one of the greatest footballers of all time.
Indeed, he is. But I'm looking at all the list of all other athletes who have tested positive for the coronavirus in recent weeks. Brazil forward Neymar, his PSG teammate Mbappe, and also AC Milan striker Ibrahimovic also have tested positive for the virus in recent weeks. As for the NFL, New England Patriots quarterback Cam Newton also tested positive in early October this month. Also in the world of golf, world number one Dustin Johnson has pulled out of this week's CJ Cup after testing positive for COVID-19 as well. 7-time NASCAR Cup Series champion Jimmy Johnson reported testing positive back in July as well. Also, the Boston Celtics guard Marcus Smart announced he tested positive back in March in a video message to his fans. And then, of course, we talked about this also on the Morning Majlis. Novak Djokovic, the men's world number one tennis player, now, well, he tested positive back in June, on the 23rd of June, that is, and then apologized to all individuals who contracted the virus after playing in an exhibition tournament he organized in Serbia and Croatia as well. And so many other athletes that have tested positive recently.
Athletes testing positive recently. And this is particularly tricky because athletes rely on their performance on the field for their livelihood, meaning they have to be in tip-top shape at all times. And the thing is, and they've been doing a lot of studies in this, number one, scientists don't have a clear picture yet, despite all this time, of how COVID-19 permanently affects your body. So there's a more acute, let's say, risk of playing under this pandemic circumstance. And the majority of major leagues around the world have opted to return in some way or another, with some limitations being imposed as well. But yes, the interviews with athletes who have contracted the virus, they have spoken about the potency of the symptoms that they had gone through. And even after recovering from COVID-19 and being declared negative, they expressed their surprise at lingering battles with lung issues, the difficulty of reestablishing workout regimes, lingering muscle weakness as well, and bouts of anxiety about whether or not they'd be able to meet the same kind of performance that they've had prior to their infection with COVID-19. And some studies have even established the possibility that in severe cases of COVID-19, you could have permanent damage in your heart, in your lungs, in your brain, and in your muscles. And when you talk about that affecting major athletes playing in major sports, we're talking about millions of dollars on the line, as well as their general health and the possibility of them being able to play as good and well as they used to in the past. So for athletes, this is a pretty terrifying prospect.
It is.
The lingering symptoms of COVID-19, even after testing negative.
Yeah, the long-term effects of the COVID-19 on the body, it's not a joke. And there are studies that show that COVID-19 symptoms can sometimes persist for months, even though a lot of people, or most people, recover within 2 weeks, let's say. But the virus can damage, as you said, Ahmed, the lungs, the heart, the brain, which does increase the risk of long-term health problems. And some people, even those who had mild versions of the disease, they continue to experience symptoms after their initial recovery. Especially older people and people with many serious medical conditions are the most likely to experience lingering COVID-19 symptoms. And we know that some of the common signs and symptoms that linger over time, they include fatigue, cough, shortness of breath, headache, and even joint pain. So it is alarming, especially for athletes who depend on their health and their stamina and their well-being.
Yeah, absolutely. And scientists have also picked up on, in past COVID-19 cases, particularly severe one, some permanent seeming scarring of heart tissue and muscles as well. And these studies continue to be conducted. But it really goes to show how little we know about the functioning of this virus. This type of study where you're examining a long-term impact of an illness, you can't do that day and night. These things take a long time. They take large sample sizes. They take pretty elaborate studies followed over months upon months, even possibly years, in order to truly study the magnitude of this. But it also further shows you the pressure that leagues around the world are dealing with, trying to consider starting or restarting sporting events yet again. But yes, the reason we're talking about this is because Cristiano Ronaldo, the Juventus and Portugal forward, had tested positive for COVID-19. And stay tuned to Pulse 95. We've got more updates coming up, including the all-new iPhone, set to be equipped with 5G and set to be a major upgrade from previous editions, one we hadn't seen in years, in fact. How much is this thing going to cost? That's what people want to know. Well, we've got the answers for you coming up right here on Pulse 95.
If you liked this episode of the Morning Majlis, drop a like and subscribe.
95.
Be sure to follow us on Instagram for all our daily updates and top stories.